There it is.
There you go.
First, we should explain to them how long it took us to work these outfits out. I think that's very important.
Great minds, great creative
very-
minds. I was thinking about the record, Darkness on the Edge of Town, and this documentary is, as I said, it's an incredible treasure, really, because it's those songs have become, I don't even know if they're yours anymore. I think people own them. They've become a part of the tapestry of their lives. The first thing I was curious about is what made you first have the impulse that you could take your music from rock and the fun of rock into being an actual exploration of darker themes.
Well, a lot of people had come before with that. I mean, there's some of the greatest blues music is some of the darkest music you've ever heard. And also, you had maps that you had, obviously Dylan had come, when I was 15, and I listened to his music first, and his music contained a lot of, I always used to say when I heard Highway 61, I think I felt as a teenager that I was hearing the first true picture of how I felt, how my country felt, So when I heard that, I knew I liked that. I liked, and I was very ambitious also. Darkness on the Edge of Town came out of a huge body of work that had tons of very happy songs. Bar band music, soul music. When this thing comes out that this film is a part of, there's 2 CDs of music that is very unlike a lot of what ended up on the record. And it was all music that we recorded, we wrote, and made a very distinct decision to not use. Once again, if you think about the late 70s when that record came out, top films of the day was like Taxi Driver. Mean Streets had come out. I think Marty Scorsese said the artist's job is you're trying to get the audience to care about your obsessions, the things that you think are more important and more vital and more essential than anything else in the world. My job is to write something that makes you find yourself in those things and you feel that way.
Do you think that it took a measure of success for you to feel that you had courage enough to put out that kind of work?
It was a very unusual time to make records because unlike today when everyone has access to the internet to get their music heard or everybody knows somebody that has a small label or in those days I was the only person I'd ever met who had a record contract. None of the E Street Band, as far as I know, had been on an airplane until Columbia sent us to Los Angeles. We'd heard about them, we'd seen them pass over, but we hadn't been on any, You couldn't, and so it was a smaller world, and we were provincial guys with no money, and so it was this whole little street life in Asbury Park, and people, New York was a million miles away, unlike, and the idea, localism as a movement hadn't occurred yet in music, so there was nobody saying, man, I got to see what those bands in New Jersey are doing.
Was there a moment or a period or a certain age in your life where it went, where you remember it transitioning from, I'd like to write a good song, to I am going to paint on a big canvas about all of, where I'm going to go epic?
I felt like it before I made my first record because I'd had a pretty successful local band. I mean, we sometimes played to a couple thousand people. And when it came time to record, I knew that wasn't going to be enough, I said, man, there's other guys that play guitar well, there's other guys that really front well, there's rocking bands out there. But the writing and the imagining of a world, that's a particular thing, That's a single fingerprint. All the filmmakers we love, all the writers we love, all the songwriters we love, they put their fingerprint on your imagination, and in your heart and on your soul. That was something that I'd felt, be felt touched by, and I said, well, I want to do that. I took the 10 toughest songs I had. I didn't want to cut that feeling. I didn't want something that had a more broader, somewhat compassionate overview. You know, that didn't feel like the moment for that for me. You know, I look back now and I wish it'd been easier, but if it was easier, you know, maybe it wouldn't have been as hard. You know, and there was something in that hardness of it that young, naked desire to, like I said, we wanted to. Hey, look, we wanted to be important. You know, that was came out of a little town, and we wanted people to hear our voices about, you know, and we set our sights big. You know, there was no modesty involved. I'd work the band for 3 days on a piece of music, and I would throw it out. I'd work the band for 3 days on another piece of music, and I would throw it out. And I just kept until. And then we did the same thing with the cover. You know, we shot the cover 3, 4, 5, and throw them all. I mean, it was, you know, we were. I decided, you know, we were gonna sort of roll for all of it or miss, you know, and I think Darkness was important because it was the beginning, in a funny way, of. The first 3 records were a little bit of prequels. It was the beginning of a long narrative that went through Nebraska and into the Rising and into even Magic. Just a long conversation that I've had with my fans that has been one of the most valuable experiences of my life, you know. So it was a record that really in some way started that conversation. And it's been so all you folks that have been along with me, it's been something I've enjoyed tremendously, and I appreciate it.
Good note to end it on.